Triangle 6.
Roger, that's the only one I've got right there where the pointer is.
Welcome back to the DCS SITREP, everyone. This is Prickly Hedgehog, and today we dip into the recent newsletter from ED covering the Lunar Sale and updates on the JF17, as well as a new campaign by Reflected Simulations. We'll start with news not covered specifically in the newsletter, and that was the RWR updates from WAGs on both the F-18C and the F-16C, which were showcased last week. The Hornet got some new symbology for the early warning radars, radar-guided anti-aircraft artillery, ECM jamming, flare tracking on an EW-correlated target, and some air target updates in which a friendly target will now have a semicircle hat above it. A triangle would indicate a hostile, and a staple, as you can hopefully see here, which would indicate an ambiguous target. Now, while WAGs rattled through these, he also flew around the new Sinai map, which looks pretty darn amazing, with various features being showcased in the short video. I'll throw a link to that below for you to see for yourself if you wish, and also the video he did on the F-16, which we'll talk about now. So the Viper is also set to receive updates, including the animated tail hook and alternate landing gear. The tail hook will need to be reset manually by the ground crew. It cannot, once released, be set back, if you like, by the pilot. And unfortunately, at this time, ED are not considering creating that whole arrestor system for land-based airfields, but it isn't necessarily out of play. It's just not something that they're interested in doing at this time. As far as the RWR system, though, similar to the Hornet, it also got some updates, and WAGs showcased the search function, which allows you to filter out acquisition radars using the threat warning auxiliary panel by pressing the S button, which should be flashing. Using the altitude button will prioritize ground-based emitters, which will be symbolized in the RWR display. Unselecting the switch will prioritize airborne emitters. Selecting both will see the search and low altitude symbol in the RWR center flip between the search and L symbols, and the symbology in the RWR will be a little bit smaller to accommodate all the returns that you're going to get when you're basically looking for everything. Now, this is going to be particularly useful for those seed mission lovers among you looking to blind the enemy, but also help others there to clean up the priority threats and coordinate responses to the ground and air problems, which I think will be useful for multiplayer people in particular with specific missions in mind. You'll notice also that WAGs showcased a wider variety of blips and chirps for the RWR as it senses emissions. The symbology will modulate in size when first detected. Airborne emissions will emit a higher tone than ground threats, and again, this will allow the pilot greater essay as they tune into these audible warnings. It'll be a little bit like having our own R2 unit in the aircraft. Now, WAGs also advised that we will have a new symbol when a radar emitter has us locked, which is a square and the flashing circle as before. If a missile is being guided to us, the sound emissions for a radar-launched missile has also been changed. We should hear 8 beeps rather than it just screaming at us as previously, and it will pause for 15 seconds, then 8 beeps at a lower tone will then sound, and the process will continue as long as we are under the locked system of the radar. This will really liven up the audible cueing and replaces the constant screaming as mentioned of the RWR under missile lock. In addition, they now have the target separation button, which has been updated and allows you to separate multiple emitting signals along azimuth lines rather than heading as previously, which separates the signals much more usefully. Lastly, the system also has a proper bit function that will allow you to run the system through its internal checks. This update brings a lot more functionality to the systems, which players will enjoy regardless of role, I think, and builds a much greater essay in the battle space than we've previously had, at least in terms of practical reference for the player. The F16 audible tones are a nice touch to enhance that essay, and all of these things are coming soon, likely in the next big open beta patch. One feature that is still to be implemented is the handoff function, which will be introduced once they have a library of all the different radars completed. That's exciting news, and the team have done a nice job of implementing that particular system. It looks really cool, and it also sounds really neat as well. As I said, it's like having your own R2 unit.
Then we'll slowly roll out at about 255, start slowly rolling to 270.
We have a sale going on right now as part of the Chinese New Year celebration. This is the Lunar Sale, and there really are some amazing bundle packages in the eShop right now, so do check them out if you're looking for something to your liking. We're talking things like the Hind and the Apache and the Black Shark 3 for $150, which is a major saving. And we also have bundles for maps as well. And if you're interested in upcoming campaigns, like, for example, Reflected Simulation Speed and Angels campaign, well, you've got till the 29th to embellish your e-hanger, if you like, so that you can enjoy some of these amazing campaigns. And we're going to talk about that right now, the Speed and Angels campaign, because it is an exciting one. Now, this particular campaign is being done by Reflected Simulations, who produces some of the best campaigns in the game, along with Baltic Dragon. The two have paired up for some complex action for the upcoming Kola Peninsula map as well, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when the two guys who are the best in the business pull this one off. So we'll see what happens with that. In the interim, the Speed and Angels campaign sees Reflected go back to the F14. This time it's the B variant, similar to the training-centered Zone 5 campaign he did with former F14 Rio Dave Bio Baranek, and that was an F14A specific series of training missions. And this time our instructor is former F14 and A6 pilot Paco Karichi, and the Speed and Angels franchise sounds familiar. It's because Paco was the producer of the 2008 film Speed and Angels, which focused on a couple of pilots training for the roles in the F14, including Megan Varley, who also lends her voice to this campaign. It's a great movie and really gets behind the scenes of what it's like to become an F14 pilot. Check it out. It's free to Amazon Prime members if you're a member of that particular system. It's a really good movie. Reflected and Paco teamed up to build this training campaign, which features some really interesting firsts for DCS World, which I really appreciate. One is that the main character is going to be female, and that's a huge nod to the amazing female aviators out there who carved niches in a male-dominated field and overcame a lot of sexism and proved themselves as very capable pilots. Ward Carroll actually does a great video of this issue, which was exacerbated by Cara Holtgreen's crash, and she was publicly vilified for the incident and that her sex was used as a reason for the accident and why females couldn't handle the demands of landing on a carrier and flying the F-14. Now, the logic ignored, obviously, the number of men who have crashed around the boat and on land in F-14, which is notoriously dangerous at low speed around the boat. You can really get out of shape with that aircraft, and I'm sure many of us can testify to that in the safety of DCS World. And Wood pointed out quite rightly that the aircraft really doesn't care what sex you are, and there's a reason that the NATOPS manuals that we have for carrier operations are written in blood. I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested in that video. It's a good one. It's got over 2 million views right now and really does highlight some of the issues and challenges that female aviators had in getting into the Navy and overcoming some of these hurdles. It's really cool. Well, sexual politics aside, the other aspect of this campaign I think will be a first is the grading system, which Reflected and Paco have also introduced. This will probably be familiar to former military aviators and certainly the F-14 ones out there. The concept introduces some extra pressure and expect enhanced realism from the campaign. As Reflected advised, this will not be one suited for those who aren't capable of aerial refueling, day or night, or are brand new to the F-14. You'll need to get some seat time if you want to get the best out of this campaign. Thirdly, it appears the campaign will transition from training to deployment, so it spans different theaters and maps as you progress, which I think you'll need. I understand at this time you'll need the Nevada training map, and other portions of the campaign will be the free in-game maps like the Caucasus. Again, check out the bundles package to take advantage of the savings if you're interested in this campaign and don't own the requisite map, which is Nevada. I really like the Nevada map, and we have been pushing Eagle Dynamics at the Air Warfare Group to expand some of its features, Fallon Air Base being on our top priority list request. At this time, they aren't biting on our demands, but we think it would be really worthwhile to add, especially for campaigns like this regarding naval warfare. So maybe one day we'll see. Come on, Edie. Come on, do us a favor here. I know you're busy with other stuff, but just Fallon, come on. All right, we'll wrap up this week's SITREP with news about the JF17 Thunder by Decker Ironworks. Edie advised the team are looking to finish the aircraft. These are going to include completions of the Chinese manual and translations into English, texturing work of the exterior and internal cockpit textures. We'll also see more skins and livery templates. The community has been speculating on what's next for the team in terms of Chinese asset pack models or a new aircraft. And I haven't seen anything official as far as a new aircraft is concerned, say, for example, a Chinese variant of a late model Russian Red 4 aircraft, an Su-30, that kind of thing. We'd all love to see that in some guys in the game, but it seems highly unlikely in the current climate of things. So we'll have to wait and see what they come up with, if they come up with anything at all. The JF17 is a popular little aircraft, and I've only flown it a little bit. Again, something, if you're interested in, maybe check out the eShop. As mentioned, we have the pre-order sale cemented for the F-15E by Razbam, February 3rd, if you have forgotten or were unaware. And if you're interested in a deep dive on the F-15EX, listen to Ward Carroll's latest interview with Paco Benitez, which is absolutely riveting. Paco is responsible for the growing newsletter and podcast The Merge, and it's a real interesting newsletter featuring real-world information about aviation. Paco, of course, is absolutely entertaining and cerebral, and he's a real fountain of knowledge when it comes to aviation topics, both present day and also future predictions. He's got a real easygoing style and is really good at explaining complex topics in common language. If you've probably heard him, you may have heard him on the Afterburn podcast as well. So if you're hankering for some real-world aviation information and news, I'd recommend the Merge as a source of information. Obviously, the Afterburn podcast as well is pretty interesting. They do some cool bro chats, and Paco's a regular feature there and provides some real interesting discussion points, as do all the guys there. So it's a cool source of information. That brings us to the end, unfortunately, of another SITREP. Just a short one this week. I'm looking forward to this week's open beta patch, which should see some extensive and interesting updates. We'll have to wait until Friday for the newsletter, and no doubt Wednesday or Thursday of this week, if everything goes according to plan, the patch will be implemented, and then we can see the change log, which I expect will be pretty extensive. If you enjoyed this week's SITREP, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're pushing towards 10,000 subscribers, so I need you to click that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithms keep us going along. If you want to support the channel a little more, there is the super thanks button there as well, which, as I said, helps the channel chug along and keeps us relevant, helps me justify all the work and hours spent editing and reading and searching for information, so on and so forth. Also trying to find video footage to keep you entertained as you listen to me ramble on about all of the fun things going on in DCS world. It's going to be a fun year, like we've already said. So we'll make that do for now. Take care. We'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP. Cheers.
Push it up against the stops. Come back. Looking good. There you go. And we'll slowly get up to 350 on this.